Hello everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. I am here with another weekly wrap up. I had another great week of reading, really being productive with this romance readathon and having such a great time with this. So I think I have about 10 books to go over. So let's quickly get started and let's dive into my weekly reads. Okay guys, so quick thing, I realized last week, before I dive into this week's reads, I forgot to go over one of the books. When I was editing my weekly wrap up, I completely skipped over one of my books. So I'm going to bring that up here just to quickly go over it because I absolutely did love this book and it was one of my arcs and everything. So before I dive into my 10 reads from this week, I am going to bring up that book. So let's quickly go into it. That book was actually My Favorite Boss by Melanie Moreland. And this was such a cute romantic comedy, grumpy sunshine, obviously boss employee type of romance. This is only the second Melanie Moreland I've read, and I read her first book that I read was like Into the Storm, which was more of like a romantic suspense. I think she had like a stalker, snowed in type of vibes. So this was very different. It was very romantic comedy, which I'm not always the biggest romantic comedy type of chick, but I really loved this. And I usually don't go for books that have this cartoon cover. I do judge books by cartoon covers and I usually stay away from them. So I'm glad I went for this arc because I do see Jen talk about Melanie Moreland a lot of the time. So I wanted to give her a chance. So I did sign up for this arc. And this is between Alexander Bain and Magnolia. And Alexander Bain is that typical grumpy, hard-ass boss. He has run through all these different assistants and none of them are up to scruff. He's sick of it, and so he kind of tells HR that he is going to do the hiring himself. He ends up running through a bunch of these, they're high, like the best options, and they're not working for him. Then Magnolia shows up late. They actually run into each other because he was like leaving the office. And she ends up kind of winning him over, even though she was late, like kind of a mess, because she's actually very qualified and she knows her shit. Everything that he like asked her to do, like even tested her in the interview, she was really good. And so he ends up going with her. And he ends up hiring her as his assistant, and she's just on top of it. She's a fantastic assistant, and he really appreciates her, which is really hard because he's also very attracted to her. So you kind of have this workplace situation. She is a curvy, beautiful, smart, like sunshiny type of personality, and she's really opening him up and like just kind of helping him in the office. But he is very attracted to her and is trying to fight that attraction because of obviously the workplace. But eventually they can't really fight it, and they, you know, kiss in the office, and they are very attracted to each other and kind of want to pursue things. But she doesn't want to be seen as like one of those women sleeping their way up to the top. She doesn't want people to know, and you know, it's that typical workplace type of thing. He does have this kind of like evil mother that wants him to date a certain way, and she's trying to control his life, but he really has nothing to do with her. He kind of like shuts her out of his life. So she actually kind of has to play referee or like stop the mother from seeing him. But this was really cute because I really loved their dynamic, their personality. They had all these like very sexy moments together. But he's that typical hero where he doesn't want to love anybody. He doesn't believe in love, all of that. So I think that was, you know, it can be kind of annoying, but I didn't mind it in this romance at all. Because you could tell he's falling in love with her. The cutest thing was later in the book, they end up kind of adopting this cat together, and the cat was just stole my heart in this, and the cat dad type of thing. Like, I love a hero that is grumpy and doesn't want the cat, and he puts his foot down, and he could not take that cat back to a shelter or anything. And so this cat latches onto him and completely chose him and loves him. And so I just loved that in this. We do have an accidental pregnancy. I may be giving that away, but I just want to warn you because some people don't like that. I like accidental pregnancy. I don't like secret baby. But it's kind of leading to that conflict of like, he wants to be with me, but he doesn't believe in love. But now I'm having a baby. I don't even know if he would want this baby or a relationship. And so that's kind of the conflict that comes in. But really, this is a very low angst, sweet, kind of feel good. It just had a smile on my face through most of the book. So I really did end up loving it. So I ended up giving that one 5 stars and 3 chilies. And it's a really cute, fun, little simple romance if you love those. Okay, so let's go on to the books that I read from this week. I couldn't believe it when I was editing and I didn't even have that in there. So anyways. So the first book that I read this week was for the readathon because I am in the ballet dancers and we are wide shoes. So you get more points for reading phantom retellings, which I have not had a lot of luck with. I haven't really enjoyed my phantom retellings that much. And so I think I kind of gave up on the phantom retellings now. But this is a Phantom of the Opera retelling and it's a wide shoes. And even better, it's an MMMMF. So we definitely have sword crossing. We have some guys getting it on in this book and I fucking loved that. So, I guess I should tell you the book. This is Phantom's Thrall by Jessamine Rue. And this is basically if Christine didn't have to choose one. She basically gets in a relationship or some kind of thing going on with a dancer, which was Matthew. I think it's Joseph, which is a stagehand. Raoul, which was her childhood like best friend. And then obviously the Phantom, Eric. Now, I really loved the setting in this. She is a dancer, but she's also like a really good singer. And so Eric is trying to kind of get her into that role. And obviously Eric is being the Phantom and trying to control what's going on in the theater and make her his new star. He is very fascinated by her, but she serves a bigger purpose to why he wants her. So I do want to bring up something that I really loved in this that made it kind of different and a different Phantom Opera retelling, but it is going to give things away. So I'm just going to say spoilers right here. If you don't want the spoilers, just skip to the next book. But I kind of want to bring it up because it ended up being something that kind of was interesting to me. So in this, it does have a little twist on what the Phantom is hiding behind his mask. And it is that he is, like, this is kind of almost fantasy because they kept bringing up this play that they're doing, or opera or whatever, and it's dragons and about the war with the dragons and all this kind of stuff. And at first I thought that was just like the cool opera that they're doing, but really it's a part of their history. And the dragons have supposedly died out and all of that. Well, Eric is part dragon. So he has, like, under his mask, like, scales, and he's dragon, and he needs a virgin to have sex with and to share with, you know, his other guys, because they're kind of like his mages, and he has magic and gives them magic and all that kind of stuff. But he needs a virgin to kind of fully come into his full power and hopefully become everything. You know, we don't know if he could be a full dragon, if he can shift, what, but he will definitely have more power. And so I thought that was a unique take on this. And he already has a relationship set up with Matthew, the dancer, and Joseph, the stagehand. And so they kind of get it on separately. And so they're all going to get on with her. And then Raoul shows up. And I got to tell you, some of the hottest stuff in this was with Raoul getting kind of seduced by the Phantom. And like Matthew, there's like a crazy sexy scene that goes on in like the box that's the Phantom's box. And it was so fucking hot. So most of the stuff that like this is spicy. It's pure smut. It's, you know, very reverse harem, white shoes, smut type of things, but I was here for it. I had a really good time with it. I liked the different twists on who the Phantom really was. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and I gave it 5 chilies because it has a lot of sharing, anal, lots of, you know, man on man, those lovely type of scenes. So it was spicy and a good time. Okay, so then I listened to an ALC for Endgame by Monica Murphy. This is my first time listening or reading this author. Again, I usually request ALCs for authors I've never read before because I think it's an easy way to try a new author. And this is the first book in the Kings of Campus series. And this is basically kind of like a roommate's football romance. And this is between Everly and Nico. And Everly is in kind of a bad situation. She just transferred to this town. I think she's a junior. And it's like this really cool college that she transferred to. But I can't remember what happened. But ends up where she's going to be homeless. The room she was going to be staying in isn't available. And she happens to overhear these football players talking and how they lost their roommate and they need a roommate. And so she basically kind of begs, like offers up like, hey, can I live with you guys? I can pay the rent. She can help with cooking, all this kind of stuff. And so they agree to this. And so she ends up moving in with this house of football players. And her and Nico like just immediately have an attraction, but he doesn't want to get it on. He's a very playboy. He's a typical playboy player, football star, and he doesn't want to get involved with a roommate and have there be drama and all that kind of stuff. And so they kind of are just trying to fight their attraction for each other. And it is a slow burn. It felt like there were so many almost moments between them. And then like they'd get interrupted or they would stop it. And I was just like dying for these two to finally get together. But it was a cute, like quick little listen. I do think it kind of ended really quickly at the end. He kind of was an asshole at certain points. So I wasn't fully behind this hero, especially with his like player ways. But I do think he had some growth throughout the book. I am very interested in the other characters. I like the whole football group, his friends and everything, and the dynamics in that house. So I'm definitely interested in reading the other characters, the other heroes' books, and seeing how it continues. But I mean, it was cute. It was quick. It just didn't blow me away or anything. So I ended up giving this one 4 stars and 3 chilies. And it was narrated by J.D. Harris and Stephanie Rose. Sorry, my throat is out of it already. Okay. So then I listened to another audiobook, and this is another Phantom of the Opera retelling. And this was Midnight Duet by Jen Comfort. I ended up getting this one because it's on Read and Listen for free. I actually had it on my Kindle thing forever to like on one of my lists, and I still hadn't read it. So I thought this is a perfect opportunity. This is kind of like a gender swap Phantom of the Opera retelling where it's the female is the Phantom. And it's more of a modern day setting where she was like this big star and an accident happened that like scarred her. And now she's no longer performing in the opera and everything and the star. She's in Paris, Nevada. And I think she inherited like this rundown kind of opera house there that's really going into like almost foreclosure. And so she ends up leasing it to this 80s rock band type of guys. They're German, and she leases it out to them. And so they're all kind of like living in this opera house, and she ends up giving the lead singer some kind of like lessons to help his voice so that he'll have a long career. And they just have this insane chemistry, and they're so into each other. But his band thinks he's still in the relationship with like his girlfriend that was in the band, but she's not there, and they're actually not together, but he hasn't told them that. So there's a lot of different moving parts in this. It was okay. Like I really just have not been doing great with these Phantom of the Opera retellings. I was kind of bored through a lot of it. and I just didn't really connect to the characters. So I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars and I think 3 chilies. So, but I mean, it's a pretty decent read. It just didn't blow me away. Okay, so then I listened to Fire in His Blood by Ruby Dixon. This is the first book in the Fire Blood Dragon series. I did this because for like my shifter romances, because this is like a dragon shifter. And this was pretty interesting. It is set in a post-apocalyptic type of world where like this rift kind of opens up in the sky and dragons came through. So this is actually Ruby Dixon where it's set in Earth, which is a change for me because I'm used to listening to all her Ice Planet Barbarians and Alien series. So, you know, obviously the world is not in a great place because the dragons randomly come by and have attacks and all that kind of stuff. And we have our heroine, which is Claudia, and she kind of is forced to scavenge and kind of steal to provide for her sister and her friend. I think her sister was like, had a leg injury or some kind of like where she had to take care of her. And she ends up getting caught and kind of like arrested. And instead of like trying her or whatever, they decide to kind of give her up as a sacrifice to one of the dragons because there's a rumor going around that this other dragon was tamed by a woman that they kind of, and so the dragon stopped attacking and whatever. And so these people have been trying to give up women to these dragons. None of them have survived so far. So she's basically taken up to this huge skyscraper and left up for this dragon. And she thinks like it's her death, like she's going to die. But she's going to be its fated mate. And so we have Kyle, which I thought was kind of a weird name for a dragon. It seemed like a regular, really like normal name for a dragon. But anyways, he ends up coming by. He scents her. He knows she's his mate. And so he shifts into like a human type of form. So it's like their battle form is their dragon. And they're kind of like with going through the rift, they're kind of like losing their minds and they're more in their beast state. So that's kind of why they've been like attacking and everything. So he ends up basically taking her and is like, you're my mate. Of course, she's going to fight this and she needs to go back to her sister and protect people and blah, blah, blah. So it was okay. This was a little bit longer than Ruby Dixon's usual stuff. So I think some of the stuff got kind of repetitive and it slowed. It was like kind of a little bit slow in the middle, but I still enjoyed it. I think it was an interesting setup for this world. I love dragon shifters, had some good spicy scenes in it. So I definitely enjoyed it. It just wasn't my favorite. But I still gave it 4 stars. And I gave it 2.5 chilies. I ended up listening to this on audiobook because it was on Audible Plus. So definitely had a good time. Okay, so then I read an arc and I was very highly anticipating this. I read The Finest Print by Erin Langston. This is her new historical romance. I just read Forever Your Rogue this year. It was a 6-star. It's one of my favorite books of the year. It blew me away. I fell in love with Erin Langston's writing, so I was very highly anticipating this. There's just something about her as a new historical romance author that's doing what others aren't. And she writes very emotional and like beautiful and romantic historical romance that like just really touches me. So, and I really liked the setup of this. So in this, we have Ethan Fletcher, and he is an American. He has just moved to England because he inherited a print shop from like his uncle or something. He's a very like working class kind of man. He's had to really, his mom dropped him off and he had to do like apprenticeships and like work his way up in America to be where he is now. Like he wanted to be like writing news and stuff there, but it wasn't really like panning out for him. And so then he gets this print shop. So he thinks this is the perfect opportunity for him. But things don't go great because when he arrives, he finds out that his uncle had actually been in debt to a debtor, a collector, and he owes a bunch of money or this print shop is going to be given to that collector. And he only has a limited amount of time. He has a deadline that he has to get this money. And it seems pretty impossible for him. because the print shop has lost a lot of business and he doesn't know how is he going to make these payments. He's got like no money to his name from traveling from America. And so he's really in a bad place. He happens to run into Belle Sinclair. And Belle Sinclair is actually the daughter for like a previous book, which I haven't read yet. But she's the niece to the heroine from Forever Your Rogue. And her father is a judge. And she's basically considered a spinster. She's kind of not invited to things anymore because she had an engagement that she basically like canceled. She didn't go through with it. This guy was a jerk, and so she didn't want to marry him. She's also trying to become an author. She's written a book. She's sending it out to all these publishers, but they are not accepting it. So she's kind of in a tough spot with that. So when she runs into Ethan, there's this immediate connection between them, and he finds out about her book, and he was like reading part of it, and he basically comes up with a really great idea that they could serialize her book into penny dreadfuls. At this time, they weren't called penny dreadfuls yet. I think they were like penny bloods or something, but they could sell those for really cheap. They weren't really taxed. The news was really badly taxed at this time. So a lot of people couldn't even afford to get the news or read it. So they could buy like these, you know, penny dreadfuls for a penny and, you know, sell out of them really quickly. So they come to this partnership where she's going to write these. They kind of hide her name so nobody knows it's really her. And they kind of are in this print shop in this forced proximity situation, working together every day. And I just really found it so cute, and I loved the hero, and these two had such longing for each other. Like, that's the thing, is there's this tension, there's this longing, the slight touches, the way that Erin Langston writes it, it just builds, and you can just feel it. It always reminds me of that scene in Pride and Prejudice and in the movie where he helps her into the carriage, and just that slight hand touch of lifting her and putting her into the carriage is like impactful. And so always reminds me of that, because it's really these barely there touches, and they are really longing for each other. But Ethan thinks that he could never really offer her anything. He has no money to his name. He has this debt. He's trying to build up this business just to make it so it survives. And so, and you know, she comes from a prestigious family, and you know, her dad's a judge and everything. And so there's that kind of stuff going on. So I just love this so much. It was adorable. It was romantic. I loved the setting. I loved seeing the characters from Forever Your Rogue. And I really got to read her father's romance too. So I really loved her family and everything. So I just love Erin Langston. She's my new favorite go-to historical romance author. And I just think she does something a little different. It's very subtle. It's beautiful. It's romantic. That I don't see a lot in romance now. So I really, really loved this. I gave it 5 stars and 3 chilies, because she does offer some great spice in her historical romance. But we have to work to get there, because it's just this slow build and tension of them wanting to be together. Anyways, I loved it. I love the whole penny dreadful aspect, the whole print shop, like how they actually did that back then was fascinating. I had no idea about this whole like news being taxed, and so the regular people couldn't even like read the news or afford to get that. So anyways, it was fantastic. Okay, so then I listened to Black Sunshine, and this is by Karina, Halle, Dark Eyes #1, and this was, it just didn't work for me. I know a lot of people love this. It's been on like my TBR forever. This is a vampire romance, so I wanted to read this for like the gothic kind of vibes for the readathon, and I don't know, I just couldn't connect to it. Luckily, I listened to this on audiobook. It was available on Audible Plus. But this is between Lenore and Absalon. I think that's how you say his name. Or Solon is how they call him later. But she is 21 and she doesn't even realize that she is a vampire. And she was actually, her parents were killed by these witches that were like kind of vampire. It was kind of like a revenge killing, kind of hunter situation, but they didn't really want to kill the baby that was there. So they took her and adopted her in. But I guess at 21, they start to churn to be a vampire. So she's hitting that age where she's about to churn, and she's kind of has this slight stalker situation going on with Absalom where he knows who she is, what she is. And so he ends up kind of kidnapping her, capturing her while she goes through her change. And I don't know. The whole world building was like nothing. It was just a bunch of info dumping. I didn't really understand the world. I didn't understand how you were like part human, but like vampire, and you didn't turn until you were 21. And it wasn't really well developed. It was very surface level. It was all like lusty stuff. So the vampire goes through a period of lust, and then it goes to the bloodlust or whatever kind of thing. And this guy literally has his friend, whatever guy, fuck her for a few days to get her through the lust, but he won't do it. And it was just very stupid, the reasoning. I don't know. I'm not a really big fan of that. I don't know. I was bored and I didn't connect to any of the characters. It was just for me. So, I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars because I just think it felt Wattpad-y. Like, it didn't feel like I've read Karina Halle before and I've really liked her. Like, this didn't feel like a well-established world that she built. And I don't know. It didn't work for me. Okay, so then I finished out the Dragon of Ember Hollow series. I had read the first one way back. I did a reread of it because this is a dragon shifter series, plus it's a why choose. So I wanted to finish these out. I ended up buying them on audiobook because audiobooks have a full cast of narrators, and they're just some of our favorites. So I love the audiobooks, and they're super quick. You can binge through them so fast. And this is by Tessa, Hale. So I read Midnight of Ashes. And I don't really want to totally go into this because I've already gone into the first book a couple times on my channel, and it's like a continuation of that story. So the first book left off on a cliffhanger. Hayden has discovered she has these dragon shifters as mates. Lat left off on a cliffhanger where she was in danger. Her life was on the line. And it picks up right after that. But basically in this book, we kind of have a lot more of establishing each relationship between her and her guys. And they have a lot more one-on-one time. There's some good sharing scenes. She's learning more about the dragons and the world and kind of like the politics of what's going on. So I really enjoyed it. I gave that one 5 stars. Actually, both of these I gave 5 stars and about 3.5 chilies, I believe. And the next one was Dawn of Flames, and this one just was the perfect conclusion. There's a lot of action going on in these. There's one holdout that was like one guy that was refusing to be with her and fighting the mate bond, and they finally get together in this, and it was so hot, and it was like so happy when they were all fully mated. You know, you get reveals on who she really is in this one and kind of who's after her, and so it's just a really good conclusion, a sweet little epilogue at the end, and I had a great time with this series. So I highly recommend it. I want to read more Tessa Hale because these are super binge-worthy, quick reads, and they suck you in. And I loved each of the heroes. I feel like she really had like set up a connection between each character, so they were individual relationships, and you really felt like you knew each of the guys, which can be really hard in why choose romance. So I highly recommend that series. Then I read Gothicana because I needed a gothic read. And of course, this is on top of everybody's list. I've had this on my TBR for years. And so I'm really glad I finally read it. This is like the perfect gothic, obviously, romance. It's a teacher student. It's got like paranormal kind of spooky vibes. So I think this is like the perfect book to read for this upcoming season. You know, for the spooky kind of almost Halloween time, just gothic vibes. It's giving you all of that. And in this we have Corvina. And she is 21. She's been raised pretty secluded. Her mother was kind of mentally unwell, but she loved her daughter and did her best for her. But she kind of raised her, homeschooled her. She was very isolated from other people. Her mother is now in a psychiatric hospital, and she gets an invitation to this school, and which is weird by itself how she got this invitation, but she gets invited to the school. It's on the top of like this mountain, very secluded. It's got like this huge gothic mansion, dark kind of vibes going on. There's a lot of like mystery going around from like previous group that like did killings and murders. There's a couple people that had like committed suicide in like a fishy kind of really weird way. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on. She immediately has a connection to her teacher, Vod. I think it's Vod. Anyways, they have immediate connection. He's immediately drawn to her, but the teachers obviously can't get involved with the students. This one's not much of an age gap taboo vibe for like the age, because she is 21 and he's like 27, 28, I think. But they're not, the taboo stuff comes from like the teacher-student thing. But they have insane chemistry and connection, and they can't fight it long. So they end up going for it. At first, it's like a one-time get you out of my system type of thing, but they're always drawn to each other. And so it ends up being like a kind of like a secret relationship going on. But we have all this mystery on like these students that randomly go missing at the school. And she has actually heard a voice her whole life. And she's always concerned she's like kind of going crazy, or, you know, like her mother. But now she's hearing another voice. She's seeing things. So there's a mystery going on, and you're trying to figure out what's going on there. What's the danger? There's kind of this impending doom, and something's going on. And so I really love that aspect of it. I honestly got to say the twist at the end, I never saw coming. And so I thought that was really good. I did think a lot of stuff was left with like, some stuff was unresolved and I have questions. But I think maybe she's leaving it open to kind of explore that school and other books maybe. I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong, if she's going to have another book, or maybe if she already has one. I just don't know. But I really loved this. This is one of my new favorite teacher-student. I think the tension was like really built up really well with them. They have amazing spice. I loved just the gothic, spooky vibes in this. So I think it's perfect for this upcoming time of year right now with fall coming and all of that. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars, and then I think 3.5 chilies. Okay. All right, so the last book that I read, I just finished this yesterday. I couldn't put it down. I'm currently finally starting Manacled. So I was doing that, and then I started this book, which is Clayton, and I was hooked. Like, I got hooked into this book, and it is not for the faint of heart. So let me tell you, it put me through the freaking ringer. This has got to be one of the most angsty, depressing, emotional, devastating type of books, and but it's in a good way. Like, it had me feeling like so sad and devastated for our heroine throughout like the whole book, and but I don't know, I still really enjoyed it. It does end on like kind of a cliffhanger. So I was debating going into the second one, but I think I want to give myself a little bit of a break because it killed me. So this is a shifter type of romance, kind of romance. In this, we have Raya and Clayton. And Clayton, Raya actually, when she did her first shift, she was like 16 and she realized that Clayton was her mate. And she basically went to him. She was a juvenile at that time and, you know, went to him as her mate, and he rejects her. He won't accept their mating bond because he is in love with his girlfriend, Kennedy. They've been together since they were basically kind of like in diapers. She's his true love. And so he completely rejects her. And in that moment, Raya reacts badly and she goes after to attack Kennedy because that's her mate. And she gets basically in huge trouble, huge consequences for doing that. And she gets whipped and she's kind of shamed. And she's ostracized by the, you know, pack. And so she goes through that for a couple years where she had to literally watch her mate choose another woman and completely reject her. And it was just heartbreaking for her. So she ends up able to move away for a couple years to do kind of like a training to be a midwife and to help, you know, packs and everything deliver babies. And so she gets that training, but her pack calls her back a couple years later that she needs to come back and do that for the pack. And so she's kind of devastated, very nervous because she doesn't want to be around her mate. It's very hard for her. And she shows up and it's just brutal because now he's even drawn to her more that he never really was when she was younger. But now he's feeling that mating bond and he kind of keeps coming around because his wolf and him, like his nature needs her, but he doesn't want her. And he like lets her know that he still loves Kennedy and wants to be with Kennedy, but he needs her. And it's just so fucked up. I hated Clayton and Kennedy in this so much. But luckily, Raya actually starts to connect with a doctor that she works with, Dallas. And he, you know, and her start to kind of explore things together. But she's also in the same area as her mate. And her mate doesn't want him to be with her, but doesn't want to be with her. It's just a fucked up situation. This book, like, just put me through it. It was so freaking angsty. Everything that Raya has to go through is just so devastating. But like, I just wanted her to be with Dallas so bad. So I was shocked by this. I wasn't expecting like a rejected mate where like he doesn't ever accept her. Like that's what this is. It's like kind of like finding a mate that's not your true mate. And how would that work? I don't know. It's just a lot. I don't want to give too much away. I've already talked too much about it. But I freaking loved this even though it killed me. It was so emotional, so depressing. The writing was so well done. She made it so emotional and like explained the world. This was an example of like good world building. I felt like I got the pack dynamics, the world, and everything going on. And so I absolutely loved it, even though it killed me. So I ended up giving this one 5 stars. There's not a lot of spice. I think I gave it like 1.5 chilies. So I'm hoping the next one, which continues her story, I hope it has a little bit more spice in it. But honestly, this book was very interesting, very different and unique. And I think it's one of my favorite shifter romances, even though the romance is like not what you expect and it's kind of depressing and devastating. Anyways, okay, so those are all the books that I read this week. Thank you so much for watching my video. As always, I just want to remind you, make sure you hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my channel if you aren't already. For those of you that are, I appreciate you so much and helping me build this channel. So give me that subscribe, leave me a comment down below, like the video, and I will see you guys on the next one.